Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Animal Kingdom. Great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's focus on the past stuff first, where, I guess based on the episode title, because I guess 1992, at this point, Smurf has already adopted Baz. It's actually been 6 years since she adopted Baz. She's already got Darren and Craig as well. And so, obviously, they're living in the house that's here in Oceanside. Well, not here in Oceanside, but the one that they're living in present day and everything, right? So, Baz gets an idea to steal some computers, and I guess Julia was supposed to be the lookout or whatever. But Baz was planning on selling computers, but no one really knew how to properly fence them because they have tracking serial numbers and stuff, so it makes it hard to really do anything with them, especially I guess at this point in time. And Julia ended up getting caught, and so did Pope, and it just led to a whole thing. Pope got super physical. Julia, I mean, what would they have done even if they got away? There still would have been issues, so they wouldn't have been able to get away scot-free. But Pope made things worse because he escalated things. To be fair, he's always been his sister's protector. That's always been his role just in the family. He's always been the protector, in many different forms. So he's always been the one that kind of get down in a knit and, get down dirty if he needs to. And things just escalated, and Janine's there to try and smooth things over, but it doesn't necessarily work out. And I think this episode, and I think this season as a whole, is going to personify a lot of issues I had last season. Not in the sense of problems. It's the Janine and Julia relationship is what I mean. That relationship breaks my heart seeing it on screen. Because for so long we never got it on screen, and last season we got it. And just the little things here and there, the way Smurf treats Pope versus how she treats Julia. And this episode, it's amplified because it's you see her dynamic with Pope and her dynamic with Baz. And even then, the kind of contention that's already existing there. Because Pope was always the go-to, and now it's all right, you have another older son now that you're kind of bringing in the fold. He's your favorite, whereas Pope was always her favorite. I think I've always saw it as she saw more of herself in Pope than she did Julia. Or maybe truth be told, she sees too much of herself in Julia, and that's why they hate each other so much. But Julia even says, right, I wouldn't look, her mom's chastising her. It's right, you didn't think about the SATs and stuff like that. Because of that, a teacher was there instead of the school kind of being empty, except for janitorial people. And it's well, I didn't want to go alone, but if I didn't go, she's I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I'm screwed because, I forgot a detail. I didn't want to have anything to do with this. But if I didn't go, both of you, I guess Baz and Smurf would have chastised her for missing out, is kind of what she made it seem like. And that's just because the thing is, we know what Julia's story is. We've known from the very beginning what it was. So it made that stuff with her as a little girl that much more heartbreaking. But to see where they are now, they are butting heads more than ever. Because I think Julia's not the little girl that she was anymore, where she saw, she was a lot more forgiving of her mom's BS. Now she's she pushes back, which makes Smurf much more pushback as well. And it's right, it's just only a matter of time before we get to the fallout of her just leaving completely and getting away from this family. The real thing that just finally broke the camel's back and just pushed Julia off the edge. And we know she eventually got addicted to drugs, and I think a lot of that ends up falling on her mom. Like I said, her mom just didn't because it's this episode, and like I said, a lot of last season, just her mom's poke. Her mom poked her a lot, and it's just she can be cruel in many overt and subtle ways, and I feel that. Well, because Julia wanted to keep going to this school, so Smurf asked about them. It's first who does she concern more about? It's Pope. Okay, and then she's what about Julia? And then the counselor or principal, whoever it was, is Julia, I don't think she's being challenged enough, basically saying we need to work together as a team. And I think like given enough like time and attention, and if we do this the right way, she could end up excelling, as kind of what the lady was saying. And you could tell like, every word out her mouth was like rubbing Smurf the wrong way. Because I think for Smurf, it's like, oh, so you're saying I'm a bad mother? It's like, oh, it's my fault? You're trying to paint me as the villain. That's what really kind of rubbed her the wrong way, I think. I don't know if the lady could, because I can see from a certain perspective, it almost seemed like you were poking, being like, oh, there's issues at home that might be the reason why Julia is the way she is, but she has a bright mind, bright future, like, if we handle things the right way. And later on, Smurf sees her and Baz together, and that rubbed her the wrong way, too. So that's why I'm also like, is it jealousy? Like, there feels like there might be an air of jealousy of like, oh, you know, Smurf isn't as young as she used to be, and here she is, she has her daughter, so young and beautiful, and it seemed like the whole Baz thing, because it's like, oh, you're pulling Baz away from me, Baz is supposed to be mine. There's an interesting thing, because it almost feels like Pope feels, you know, the other way of like, oh, it feels like Baz is taking Julia from me. And so what does Smurf do? She's like, once again, digs at her, being like, oh, you should go dry off, you look like a wet rat or something. Like, it's like completely unnecessary. It's like digs like that makes you go like, yeah, I think it's like, oh, like, because I think Smurf is starting to resent Julia in that regard, because it's like, oh, you're the quote unquote younger beautiful version of me, my youth is kind of being taken away from me, and here you are representing that you're so young, and I'm not as young. It feels, whether that's the full brunt of it, I don't know, but it feels like there's an air of that to it. And so, her even lying, being like, oh, you're getting expelled, and she's like, I'm sorry, we'll figure something out. It's like, she just wants to push Julia down, and I don't know whether in her mind it's like, I'm doing Pope a favor. He wants to keep Julia close because, well, Pope can't go back to that school. Julia can. But Smurf knows that Pope doesn't want to be separated from her, so it's like, oh, I'm doing you a favor while also taking her down a peg or two. This way, she'll get to know, learn her place, essentially, you know? And she was just so smug and glee with herself, like, the moment she did that. So you're like I said, it's just like that contentiousness that you're just like, man, she did... All around, I don't think she did the best job as being a mom, and I think this is really kind of nailing that home. And it's like, right, you're just, I've been feeling it since last season, of just like feeling like I legitimately feel bad for Pope too, but especially Julia. You know, it's like what Pope was groomed into being, I felt so bad, but also like the spiral that Julia went down. It's just like, once again, you just see the very, very early stages of it, even last season, and you're getting front row seats to it this season, and that's just a very heartbreaking thing. I think the show did such a great job too of doing that juxtaposition as you like cut between Julia and Jay stuff. It's so interesting. I think it's so fascinating that Jay, I guess because Jay was always kind of the outsider, because Julia kind of kept him away from the rest of the family, right? So him being the one that kills Smurf was always kind of almost like things coming full circle, the students are passing the master type of situation, because she was setting him up to be her successor of sorts, you know? Because she always like moved on to different kids that she really took a shine to. If it wasn't Pope, it was Baz, and then eventually Jay kind of got all of her special attention. She was like, you know, trying to like raise him up to be like her successor of sorts. So there's that element to it, but so him pulling the trigger on her always kind of like, okay, so it had that thematic element to it. Plus, like I said, because of Julia, he was always an outsider. Now with the context of this Julia stuff, it makes you almost go like, it's even more poetic that it was Jay that pulled the trigger. And I don't know I'm sure the writers probably thought about that after the fact. It's like, okay, we could add even more weight to the fact is that Jay's the one that pulled the trigger. Because him pulling the trigger, it might as well have been Julia who pulled the trigger at that point, you know? And I think that's a beautiful, I mean, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like that's thematically what they're kind of going for. Like, you go like, wow, him pulling the trigger was pretty much like, yeah, Julia might as well superimpose Julia in that scene pulling the trigger, because out of anyone in that family, she would have done it before anyone else. but also like, focusing on present day. The houses are in the places they're trying to sell aren't selling like they're supposed to, and we see everyone kind of dealing with their respective circumstances. Craig's dealing with everything with Ren. Like, it seemed like, oh, at first you're like, oh, things are good, you guys are great, yeah, you're back with Ren and Nikki. Oh, but you're being supervised because her cousins are there to keep an eye on you. He's like, wait, how long is this going to go on? Like, do you not trust me? It's like, to be fair, Craig, you have some very like erratic behavior. To be fair, it's not like Ren's like clean, like the great, but it's like, yeah, come on, bro. Like, Ren's kind of obviously got mixed up in some dirty stuff last season, and I'm surprised that hasn't blown back, but I get the feeling that probably will this season. Because she kind of got away with a lot of the stuff she was doing last season, not much of an issue, but I'm like, there's no way that's just going to skirt on by this season, right? Like, that's probably going to come back to, because later on, Craig gets like, it's like, right, she canceled another, like, right, I can't even see my son whenever I want to. She gets to dictate a lot of the rules. And I think maybe that's because of some business stuff that she's up to. And I think that's just going to send Craig like deeper and deeper over the edge. We'll see, but I'm like, I think the dude's a ticking time bomb. Especially because like one of her cousins was like, yo, you're looking like buff, which you see him like he's at the gym and it's just like he's exchanging one vice with another rather than alcohol and drugs. He's like pumping iron. That's why I'm like, that's not a good, like, until you deal with you're not dealing with the root issue, and he's thinking that he is, but it's like, you're once again exchanging one vice for another. It's all that really is. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. Jay is still trying to be the manager of everything. He never shuts that side of himself off. So he's talking to Pope about like, hey, let's make we need to kind of pull another job. And I love that Pope ended up making, he's like, I thought it was kind of a cute moment. He's like, you want a sandwich? And Jay's like, yeah, sure. He's like, which way do you want it cut? He's like, either way's fine. And he gives him the sandwich. And then later on he sees Jay put chips on it, and he's like, he looks so disgusted. Well, I don't know how to interpret that. I don't know whether he was almost like, your mom. I feel like if it was a Julia thing, he would have said something, but I think it's like, I crafted a great sandwich. It was fine on its own, and you ruined it by putting chips on it. And he's like, next time, get square bologna or something like that. Next time you go shopping, can you please get square bologna? So, and then there's everything with Darren at the bar. That guy Trey walked in and be like, yo, these influencers, they're wild. Once again, the Codys usually handle that stuff. It's like, right, this is a locals area, and we don't need people coming in trying to gentrify the area, trying to like run stuff, do whatever they want. So later on, Darren rolls up, and I love two of the people there see Darren, and they're like, oh. And one of the guys, I think it was his friend or his sister, being like, yo, we need to go. It's like, the moment he saw Darren, it's like, yo, we gotta go. He knew what time it was. And that guy was like, yo. And it was almost like, oh, we're gonna be a beatdown or whatever on camera or whatever. Darren didn't even go hand in hand. Darren just broke the damn bottle across dude's face. And it's like, yeah, you guys need to get out of here and just roll. And that guy Trey, who lives next door, is almost like, hell yeah. Because it's like, yeah, the Codys, yeah, they run shit. Just, they'll always be quick to shut that down. I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing. It's like, poor bastard. Darren could have handled that in a little less violent way. It's like, could have punched some dude in the face or something. Didn't have to break a bottle across his face, but it's almost like, nah, like, fuck around and find out. Like, I'm not here to play around. It's just kind of, and he was just so like haphazard about it. He's just kind of like laissez-faire rather. He was just kind of like, all right, picked up a bottle, like so like nonchalant, just like, yeah, you need to get out of here. Just like such low energy, which makes it just that much more, I guess, worse for that guy, and just so like, oh, it's just because it's just so nothing. It's just like, yeah, this is what we do. And you could tell Darren kind of felt good about it. It's like, yeah, putting these like fuckers in their place is kind of like the feel that you kind of get from Darren in that regard. But what was really interesting is, lo and behold, who came to ask them to do a job? Gia. And it's like, really? You left us high and dry. You don't want to fence for us, but you'll come asking us for a job. She's like, come on, you'll do this. And Pope was like, all right, well, listen. Even Jay's like, are we really going to do a job for her? It's like, it's a job. And I was like, okay. And you could tell, too, like, once again, Craig's got a chip on his shoulder because he's suggesting, like, okay, we do this. And Darren's like, I don't think we should. He's like, no, it'll be fine. And then when Pope and Jay are planning stuff out. You can see Craig in the background almost like annoyed because they're basically like ignoring what he wanted to do. I mean, he's had his time to shine to like, run plans. They didn't, to my recollection, like his one big plan didn't pan out. I mean, plus there's also like the whole him and Frankie stuff. So like that stuff is kind of blown up in their face in the past too. So, but I think for him, it's just kind of like he's upset and just kind of about the whole Ren and Nikki situation. So I think he's just adding a lot of that towards his like, toward like just his the whole demeanor in that scene when they were working stuff out, and just him and being from like him behind them, just going, he just looks so irritated, But once again, I love that juxtaposition between like the fact is that Jay's there with Gia and went to go see about the job, and then like you like cut to Julia walking by, seeing Smurf and Gia doing business, and there's layers to that because of what Pope says later on, but we'll get to that in a second. And I love that Gia's like, guys, like, you need to learn to let stuff go. I'm like, do you know what family you're dealing with? The Cody's motto is never forgive and never forget. Not really, but it's like, yeah, that family never forgives. They hold grudges. What are you talking about? And it's almost, and then later on, she's almost surprised because I'm like, she must have never gotten on Smurf's bad side. She's like, yeah, me and Smurf, we worked together for like 30 years. We were like family. And, really quickly, like, I was so, at first when she was like, oh, AD&T do like security for them and me. And it's like, oh, I was like, wait, did she just confirm that the place that she wants them to hit, which is basically her competitor, basically the same response time would be the same as yours? I'm like, are they going to hit Gia's place instead? Lo and behold, they did. And they burned her shit to the ground. And then she came over to Pope. She's like, why would you do that? It's like, well, you kind of left us high and dry. She's like, I had 30-year relationship with Smurf. It's like, yeah, but the moment Smurf died, you cut loose. You cut us loose. And she's like, Smurf would have never told y'all to do that. And Pope's like, she would have done worse. I'm like, that's my point. Like, did you never? I mean, you must have been one of the fortunate people to never, ever, ever, ever be on Smurf's bad side. Because Smurf was so cutthroat. Once again, she is the biggest example of never forgive and forget. If some shit like this happened, it's like, oh, you're not going to do business with it? Smurf would have been like, fuck you. Pope is right. She would have done probably a lot worse. I mean, and she's kind of saying like, right, the fact is my clients are going to come after you. You might think you're hot shit, you're on top of the world, but they're going to come after you. You should, like, Smurf would have never burnt bridges. And then Pope got up in her face being like, okay, your insurance will pay for some of that, but the others is going to be penance for you turning your back on our family. You decided not to work with us. You burned the bridges first, not us. And I even love the conversation later on between Pope and Jay, where it's like, your mom would have really liked that. And Jay's like, yeah? It's like, yeah, your mom hated Gia. And it's like, really? It's like, which almost makes it poetic that, once again, like, Jay giving her that death stare because Julia gave her the exact same stare when she saw her and Smurf doing business. And Pope's reason for that, it's like, yeah, because Smurf and Gia were too much alike. And it's like, yeah, you could see that. So no wonder, like, Julia would have, like, that look of just, like, disdain when she sees them doing business in the past. It's like, yeah. So it's the beautiful, like, parallels. I just love how they did that. And that's why I'm almost like, yeah, she thinks like they're petty. It's like, no, you put them in a bind because they didn't have anyone to fence their stuff. You put them in a very compromised position, and you claim to be family. But it's like, oh yeah, without Smurf around, it's like, shut up. It's like, because Smurf is the one you had a relationship. I mean, she wasn't the only one. A lot of people only had their relationship with Smurf. Going back to the Darren and Craig thing really quickly, because Craig's getting upset because Ren's like, once again telling him he can't see Nikki right now. And he's saying, like, this is all Darren's fault. And Darren's like, how is this my fault? It's like, I told you I should have taken my son when I wanted to. It's like, you done that? That would have been a whole issue in itself. Like, it's not like you were thinking that through. And he's like, is this even about Nikki? Or is this about Ren having you by the balls? She's got you whipped like a bitch. It's like, yo. And you could tell, like, that is what it seems like. That's what's rubbing him the wrong way. Because he feels like all his power is getting taken from him, like someone else is controlling him, and it's just like he's not in the right headspace to be dealing with all that, considering, once again, him trying the whole sobriety thing, but once again, I think it's just, he's not in the right mindset to really kind of be dealing with all that right now. We'll see. I just think it's only a matter of time until Craig explodes, essentially, so. Circling back to the past stuff really quickly, too, is the whole situation where Julia, like I said, you can see her spiraling at the very end there and just kind of like, right, like her mom's choices are what sent her down that path. Like maybe if she had if she had put her own ego, put her own bullshit aside and kind of put her daughter first and foremost, then, but once again, I'm sure her justification would be like, you might not like what we do, you might not like me, but if it wasn't for me and what we do, you wouldn't have all that you have, so stop being an ungrateful little brat. I can definitely see Smurf kind of having that type of energy. It's also interesting, too, because, once again, the juxtaposition is like, yeah, you see Baz and her getting so close, it's like, yeah, but she's the one that sent Mia to kill you, Baz, like, which is, like, it's ironic, I don't know if irony would necessarily be the right word in that case, but it's just like how close they are, and just for her to end up being the one that sent someone to kill him, it's just interesting. And then that final shot of the episode where it's just like Jay kind of looking in the mirror, and it cuts back to Julia looking in the mirror, him laying on a bed, her laying on a bed, just both at this crossroad, I guess, figuring out what their life is going to be, because he's working so hard and she's just trying to do, I think, everything she wants in life is kind of being taken from her. She has to kind of abide by what her mom is setting up and kind of giving her, rather than being able to kind of take what she wants, essentially. Or you had Jay trying to, once again, balance and manage everything. So I think that was kind of an interesting place to kind of end the episode off of. There is another episode out, but I currently haven't seen it yet. I've watched this first, and I'm going to watch that one after I finish this up. Considering this episode in particular didn't touch on any of the Catherine stuff, I think that's so interesting, because Pope was so happy, even Pope being like, oh, you got a lighter, and even Darren being like, yo, when did you start smoking weed? He's like, ever since I came back from the desert. He was in a happy mood, especially when he was talking to Jay about the whole, like, Julia and Gia thing. But it's like he's happy, and you're just like, oh yeah, like that's going to come crashing down the moment this Catherine stuff finally comes knocking at your door. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing of like, you haven't seen Pope like that in a while, because even he's like, yeah, I'm going to take that lot, I'm going to do what I want with it. He just hasn't decided what. But you're just like, because all of it just kind of immediately makes you go like, man, this show's going to have a sad ending. Like, there's no way they're all going to get away with this. There's most likely, like, a job's going to go super sideways and they're going to all end up dead. Or maybe it's going to be that final job and they go their separate ways or something. I don't know. Like, you just, like, there's no way all of them are going to make it out of this. Someone's going to die. Like, either Pope's going to die. I don't know. You hope they're able to get away with it, but, I mean, it might be a situation where they all end up in jail. I don't know. We've seen some circumstances with, oh, somebody paid the price, but other people got away with it. We'll kind of leave it. I'll keep that vague enough because, without spoiling anything. There's other cases where someone just like, no, this person straight up didn't get away. They ended up dying. So there's so many different ways this can end. Once again, I want them to get away with everything. I hope everything comes out copacetic, but you never know with the nature of this show. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.